Hello everyone, it's Justine. Today I am going to make one really neat card using the Gnome Tree die. Now this is a die set that is part of the core collections from Spellbinders. So they release different collections every month around the 14th. And this is part of the Gnome for Christmas collection. And it really is a really fun die. I had quite a time planning this one out because I wanted every gnome to have its own color in like the shades and tones of blue, basically. So I die cut out the main die that has all the gnomes on it 6 different times to get my gnomes to have a specific color, but I did not use the whole die every time. So this first die here in the corner, I wanted him to be like a teal, darker teal blue. So I put my teal blue paper on top of that gnome, put a little bit of craft tape on there, and then ran it through my die cutting machine. This way I didn't have a million little pieces of paper with all these gnome little pieces. The only color that I used with the entire die set was white because I needed every gnome to have a beard. So I just work my way through this from basically the bottom up. So every piece of gnome is kind of interlocking with the next one. So it's kind of like a little puzzle. And I just go from right to left here, and then I'm going to go up. And I think that this worked pretty well for me, and I would definitely do this again in the future. I think it was fun to do shades of blue to make the gnome, and it was kind of quick to make once I had all of my pieces laid out. The one thing that is different with every gnome is that I chose different colors for their mittens. So their mittens is their pop of color. And there's also part of this die set comes a wreath. And I'll just talk about the little dies that I have in the corner there. So I have the wreath, and then the one underneath the wreath is the shoe die. So I use black paper to cut out their shoes, and it just shows the shoes for the gnomes on the bottom row. Then the 2 dies that are underneath the shoes are 2 garlands. So they have ornaments on a string. Then the one on the bottom is the arms and the mittens. Then the one with the tiny circles that are going straight up next to the stars would be the gold parts of the ornaments. Then there are 3 star dies. And then lastly, the die that's right by that Fiskars logo there is the nose dies, which I think is so funny. These gnomes have these big bulbous noses. And honestly, my favorite paper to use for skin tones, for lighter skinned tones, is manila folders, which sounds a little weird, but it's a decent thickness, and I have a couple of manila folders that I would just toss because they're kind of old, but the insides are clean and they're unmarked, so I'm using that for my little gnomes here. So I'll pull that in just a little while, but I just have to put all of my gnome pieces together, and like I said, it's kind of like a little puzzle. So I'm just putting each little piece on and working my way through all of the pieces. I just skipped ahead just a little bit so we can continue on. I have these strings of ornaments that I'm going to put on these gnome hands. You can see that some of the gnome hands have outstretched arms like they are holding something, so they are going to hold some ornament strings. I chose to not use the wreath because I just wasn't really finding the right green paper to go with all of my shades of blue. I wanted it to be kind of like a blue and gold card. So no wreath on this card, but maybe in the future I'll make another one with a wreath on it. So to add on my shoes and nose, I just put the glue down and then rearrange them, or the pieces here, just as I saw fit. I know that each gnome had a specific shoe, but I wasn't too terribly picky about what shoe went on what gnome. Same with the noses. They're basically all the same size and shape, so I just put a nose on where I saw fit. I also chose not to use a sentiment with this card, although with this collection, the Gnome for Christmas, they do have a couple different stamps. You really could use any sentiment at all. I think it would be fun to make this card again and use a small Christmas sentiment and have either the gnome on the top or have the gnome on the bottom left, that teal gnome, hold the sentiment piece of paper. So maybe it's something that I'll try in the future, but we will see. I suppose we can always put a stamped sentiment in the inside of the card as well. So that's always an option. Now with these little garlands, I did just want to figure out where I'm putting my stars first before I add my garland. And I wasn't sure if having 3 rows of gnomes holding them was what I wanted. So I just kind of put it off to the side, even though there is glue drying on it right now. And to make my background, I'm using the Sun Rays embossing folder. I don't remember the number of it, but I will have that linked in the description. So that basically is just giving me a little interest and dimension to the back of my card. Speaking of interest, I did put my gnomes, if you saw there on the back, that paper had kind of some flecking on it. It's just a scrap of paper that I used that was kind of a cream tone. I didn't want the gnomes just to be on white background because I didn't want their beards to get lost in the whiteness of it. And speaking of white paper, I did die cut out these stars on some sparkly white cardstock just to give a little bit of glitter to the stars. I will just put those kind of randomly placed as I see fit. And I also am going to be adding these silver smooth discs. So they are a new release and they're part of the Color Essentials Embellishments and Mirrored Papers release that just came out, and I'm using the silver ones. So these smooth discs kind of look like sequins to me, but there's no hole in the center. So I'm just going to take my scissors and make a small little hole for these to kind of come out of. And to adhere them to my card, I will just put some glue dots down with my liquid glue, take my gem or jewel picker, and just attach them really simply on. So I hope that you liked this card, and if you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!